Okay, so today our plan is to get the XML and bind it to grid view right away. Okay, so in previous session we saw that we had the JSON thing. We got the collection of JSON and we bind the whole grid using the JSON, Newton's of DLL. Over here the .NET gives you the inbuilt flexibility that you can use the serialize and deserialize methods. Okay, using which you can pass like you can you know generate an XML, that is a serialization, and deserializes the whole XML, gets back to you in the object as a normal object, right? Note down this URL. This guy is pretty awesome. This guy have written a chunk of code and pretty awesome code. Okay, so now what is our aim? Just for the record, just think that we'll be getting a XML string from the outside world. Okay, it could be from the service, it could be from anywhere, REST service, anything, and that XML we need to deserialize and we have to bind into the grid. But most of you don't know what is serialization, what is deserialization. So let's go step by step. First, what we'll do is we'll do the serialization. Okay, so how do I serialize an object? In order to serialize an object, first thing you need to check out my class. Okay, so I have a request class. If you see, my class is decorated with a tag name XML root, and all the elements are XML element. So far so good, right? Pretty basic fields. Next, what I'm supposed to do is, as per the plan, it says create an object and simply serialize. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a request object. Okay, I fill the values, so now I have an object, right? Now we need to serialize. Serialize means I will convert this object into some format that it will give me an XML. Okay, for that I have one more class, util. Okay, which you can see right here. This is a class which has four methods. Okay, we'll discuss that. One is serialized object, one is deserialized object, then we got two other methods, right? But just get this thing in your mind, this is a serialized object, it requires a type, okay, and based on type you do some operation and in the end you return a string, which is nothing but a XML string, right? So what I do is I need to pass the type to the serialized object method. I say util.serialized object, and this is the type I'm gonna pass, and this is the object request which I'll be passing here. So once I do this, I'll get my XML back, and once I get my XML back, in order to prove, I will write it back. Okay, so let's run. So as you can see, this doesn't look like XML, but if you right click and then you say view source, so as you can see on the top, whoops, I'm not getting the XML. Okay, now how can I explain that this is an XML? Okay, as you can see, right? One second, let me get this XML for you. Yeah, so copy, I'll say notepad, and in which you can see the whole XML which is generated by himself, right? So as you can see, request is my class name, okay, which is basically a root we created. Then we had ID, then we have first name John, last name Kramer, and salaries I don't know, right? So this is what we have. So what we did is, we created, we have serialized our object into an XML string which we'll be using in future, right? So now this is what we have done as serialization. So let's talk about deserialization. So this is the object. When I pass to serialized object, it gives me an XML. But what if I get the XML and I want my serialized object back? So for that, okay, shift F5. For that, what I have to do is, again, I have to say var, then my class, I'll go like this for more clarity, and I'll say response, okay, response is equal to, then I'll say util dot deserialize object, then I'll say what type of object I want to deserialize. I'll say request, right? Request is something I want to deserialize, but this object expects a string, right? I'm sorry, you are not able to see anything, right? So what I did actually, this is a request class, I'm creating a response, okay, then util dot deserialize object is a method which requires a type, and as a parameter it requires a string which we already have right here, right? So this might sound a little confusing, but when I'll print the data, things get pretty much clear. Response dot write, where is that, right? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll call this guy res for less confusion, and then I'll say, okay, I'll say I want to print the first name, because I believe when this method gets executed, I get my object back. Okay, so first name, and then I say res dot, then I say first name, okay, control space, first name plus, then I say last name, okay, looks cool, then I say plus res dot last name. So we are done here. 1 second. Now I think we should run. Okay, but what I'll do is I'll remove this guy first of all, because this guy will be something. Okay, there's a first name, right? So I'll do one thing. I'll keep x, so you'll understand that this is what we are printing, not coming from somewhere. I'm just printing the first name and last name. Okay, and we know it's gonna give me a John Kramer, right? So let's run. Oops. So as soon as I run, as you can see, my early response is gone. I got my John and I got my Kramer back. So basically what I did was, I mean, these are two very powerful things. Serialize, deserialize. What serialize does is, in our case, it gets the object and converts the whole thing into the XML. Okay, it converts the whole thing into the XML, and the deserialize is the reverse thing. You pass this method XML string, okay, and it will give you back your expected DTO, I mean object, right, whichever you expected. So this is okay, but still we are not happy. Why? Because we need to bind this whole thing to our grid view, right? So what we'll do is I'll remove this guy. Okay, I'll remove this guy, and 1 second, I need to stop. I'll remove this guy and I unlock this guy. Now what I'll do is I'll do this. I'll create a list. Okay, so